Hey everybody, this is Evan Abrams, and today we're going to talk about a type of motion called the twitch and the slide, which is this twitching and sliding. It's really popular, take my word for it. Okay, so in order to do this motion, you don't really need a lot of things, and it doesn't really have to be applied to anything specific, because what we're talking about is the relationship between keyframes that produce this twitch and then slide, or you can think of it as twitch and then ease sort of motion. And I'll show you the quickest way that I know how to make this. First off, we're going to need a new comp just to play around in, and I want to have a new solid just to serve as our background. Let's use a nice brown color, perhaps. I don't actually know what I want to use for colors. Something like this, maybe. And then I'm going to need a new shape layer, which will act as the thing that we're going to animate. We're going to add to this rectangle, just make that square. Might as well make the square from the example at the beginning. So I'm setting the size up to 500, just to make it large. I'm going to add a fill to it, and that fill color, something like that maybe. Just lovely boys and girls, pink and blue up here. That's super good. Alright, that's very gendered. I'm sorry for that. Anyway, so we've got this shape layer. We'll call this the square. And already I can show you how to create the kind of motion that we're after. So let's call up the scale here, and we're just going to animate this on. And I'm going to animate it on using the scale. So it's going to start at a value of 0 for scale. I'm going to move ahead 20 frames, and I hold down Shift and hit page up to move ahead those 20 frames. And then the scale here is going to be up at 100%. So if we observe this motion, it is incredibly boring to watch this kind of motion. And why that's boring is if you look here in the graph editor, you can see, and hold on, I'm just going to zoom in so we can just look at these, that we have a linear relationship between the 2 points, meaning it's going to be constant, percent per second going across. So that's basically what this means. But if I select these points, and I give them the old easy ease, at the start and end, the acceleration is 0, so it's slightly more interesting motion. We're not there yet, though. I'm going to take this handle, I'm going to pull it this way. What does that mean is that I'm giving it an influence that is way higher. So the influence of this handle is now 100%, speed 0, 0, influence 100%. So as it approaches this keyframe, it's going to get a lot closer to 0. And then I'm going to take the start keyframe, I'm going to pull its influence all the way down there. So let's see how that looks. A little bit better, a little bit snappier, so it's coming on way fast. Now, the only thing that could possibly make this better would be if this was pushed up here so that it already has acceleration when it's coming in. Now it's getting a little bit better. Now, the next thing I want to do is cut out a lot of these keyframes. So I'm going to set the playhead right here. So we are at frame, 12 out of 20 for the completed animation. And then I'm just going to set a keyframe here, which puts one right there, right on the line. Now I'm going to take this, I'm going to drag it back to the start, which replaces the keyframe that was there initially. And now we get this kind of a motion. And now if we take this and we just offset this so it's nothing, pop. It's nothing, and then it's popped right on. So that's definitely one good way to do this. That you have nothing here, and then this thing sort of pops in, and then it slows to a stop. So if we look here at the line, though, one of the things that I dislike about this is that we have this bump that goes under. I don't like that. However, what are you really going to do? The best bet is to pull these apart or squish them together to make that go away. Right there looks to be close enough, because you don't really want the acceleration to dip below 0, because that doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense, just because the values may start to get a little bit weird. But as you can see, it went up to 101, so it's getting actually larger than we intended. However, if that is something that you're cool with, then by all means go nuts with that. But this is the basis of how to make this sort of twitch and slide thing happen. And the rest of it is pretty much just up to your discretion and the tweaking of these values. Like, we just set this down to 95, so there's even less. I mean, or it could even be 98, stuff like that. But then that bump is even more noticeable. So you have to really be aware of, you know, what the curve is doing, what's happening with these things, why is this going crazy, you know, and just manipulate the graph as best you can. And a lot of that comes down to shrinking the first handle, growing the last handle, such that fast acceleration and then lots of deceleration. So let's take this technique and let's apply it to some new stuff. So I'm going to start over. I'm going to take the scale here, remove this, and reset it, and we are going to start over fresh. So we have a square we want it to animate on. So starts at 0, keyframe, ahead 20 frames, keyframe there, it's at 100. You remember what to do. You take these, you easy ease them by hitting F9, you go into the graph editor. This one's getting pushed out this way, this one's getting bumped up. Its value, however, you know, is not what we want, but you know, we'll get there eventually. So we cut like this, put something here, make a keyframe, drag and replace that first keyframe, and boom, we're happy with this. So that's the pop and slide on thing happening. Now let's do some other things to it using the same technique. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to add a polystar to this, and let me just crack open the contents here. We have rectangle path, we have polystar path, we have a fill in here. Good. So the points of this, we're going to have 4 points. It's not going to be a star, it's going to be a polygon, which creates something that's at 45 degrees to that thing. Size is going to be 500. Good. Now I'm going to add a merge paths. That merge paths function is going to be subtract, meaning subtract this from this. The position here, we're just going to alter that up to be 250, 250, which is at the halfway here, so I can carve it in half. That's the end position I want, so I'm going to go ahead, 20 frames. There we go, that's the end position. Start position I want is going to be over here at 500, 500, so right off the square, and it's going to animate on cutting it in half like this. So we're going to take these, we're going to easy ease them, and we are going to do similar to what we did in the other example. We take this curve, push this one like this, push this one like this. So far so good. How does that look? Pretty good, but we would prefer that it start its cutting around here. So set a keyframe there. Now usually I would say drag this all the way and replace that. However, if you replace it, then the first keyframe is going to be here instead of here. So we'll just leave that alone, and then boop, just like that. So comes on, boop. You get that idea of the twitch and the slide. So this setup of keyframes is very good because it allows you to have a static start that is unaffecting things, and then a fast entrance, and then a taper. So that's basically what the keyframes represent. So the way you can envision it is, this is my start state, this is the next part of action, this is the ending of action. To make that even more pronounced, you can take this first value here and you can toggle it into a hold keyframe. That means that you can then take these things and you can move them further apart if you want, and it won't cause weirdness in between them. If you would prefer to see weirdness in between them, then just don't make it into a hold keyframe, but I'm warning you, that's going to get weird really fast. So it has this kind of a motion, boop. But, you know, that can be pleasing for some people, I don't really know. But if you look at the graph editor, what you've created is, you know, a slight interruption to that, but, you know, it's still fast acceleration and then deceleration through the curve. So this is still in keeping with the kind of curve we want to have the twitching, jarring motion. So that's good. We've created that. Let's screw around with some more of the properties, eh? So hit U to call up everything you've worked with so far. We've got scale. We've got something cutting this down. Let's do a rotation and scale at the same time, eh? Let's do that. So we'll set these, make sure they're easy eased. Go ahead, 20 frames again. Let's rotate it 180. Nah, that's too much. Let's only rotate it 45. And let's at the same time scale it up to be way too big. I'm not super thrilled with that, but maybe it'll look better once we do that thing I said. So select these things, go into the graph editor. You'll see it has these weird curves that are made from holdovers of the other curves you've been creating. So squish the first, pull the second, good, and then come into around here, set keyframes there, and then drag them to be next to the starts. So boom. So let's look back at what we've created. Pop, pop, pop. By tightening these up, you get much more poppiness going on. And these are great for accentuating things like hits in music. So when it's like tss, 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 like that, then it's good to have these hit at those times. And really, you can do this with any property. As you've seen, we did scale, did rotation, works great with position. It works with pretty much any movement property or transitions like Venetian blinds. So let's try that out. Let's see how it looks on an effect. So put it on Venetian blinds here for a minute. Maybe I'll do like this, la 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 la. And we're going to be operating on the transition completion. So set a keyframe for that. Just hit U to call up that keyframe. Go ahead 20, and I'd like it to end at 75, maybe? Let's see. Yeah, that's good. Let's make the width 100, I guess. Maybe I'll just have it end at 50 is better. Okay, good. So I've got these, and again, same technique. Easy ease, graph editor, take the points, squish the first, pull the second, find yourself a new comfortable spot, perhaps here, set a keyframe there, back into the regular keyframes, drag it to be right next to the start, boom, just like this. However, as you can see, this might not be the best spot to have it at, so maybe set it at 45 so we can observe more of the change. Tough to say. It's tough to say. As you can see, the kind of motion that you're working with, whether it's big, small, whether it's rotation, scale, they're all going to have their own sort of nuances to them that are going to make them, you know, trickier to deal with. So it's important to realize that even though these are good guidelines, that it's all very subjective to especially the size of motion that you're making. Like you saw that I just changed the size of these and it affected how we are perceiving the motion. Even though the motion curve is exactly the same, the only thing that's changed is the size of the things being moved. So remember, when things are larger, you know, it's going to be slightly different type of curve and slightly different setup, and especially the distance between these two and these two, and the value change between this keyframe and this keyframe. Because the keyframe between this one and this one is always going to be 100%. So this is always going to be 100% of the jump. This will always be around 95%, you know, 90 to 95%, you know, kind of thing. But how different this has to be from these and where this needs to be is going to be totally up to your motion. And this is where it's important to play around and just to sort of gain that experience that, you know, things of this size will react in these ways. And really the important thing, though, is to sort of play around and just have fun with it. Anyway, this has been Evan Abrams teaching you a pretty small but very worthwhile technique for animating shape layers. And just remember, it's good for hits of things. So if there are beats in songs, sync them up to that, and just go crazy and try this on a lot of different things. I know it might seem really basic, but this is the kind of movement that's going to elevate your pieces and make them very terrific. And also, it's very in vogue right now, so use it and abuse it. Anyway, I'm Evan Abrams. Hopefully this has been helpful to show you a new way of looking at motion. If you already knew about it, then you guy, I guess you're so smart. But anyway, hopefully it's been helpful to you. I'm Evan Abrams. Thanks for stopping by the channel. There's a new tutorial here every week, or I try to make a new one every week. Sometimes there are vlogs here. Get involved on Twitter, ask questions in the comments. I'm always happy to hear from people and see what kind of work you guys are making when I'm not super fucking busy. Anyway, I'm Evan Abrams. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week. Definitely subscribe to the channel if you like learning about motion graphics and After Effects and stuff like that. And even if you don't, subscribe to the channel anyway, because I'm not here to judge. Thanks again, and have a nice day.